Oh, I forgot to turn my camera on. I knew I was forgetting something. Whoopsie doodle. Well, we'll do it live. Hey, Killboy. I have to do this like... That's my camera sequence. And we'll do the zoomy zoom. And we need to do the camera oh my gosh, the light's so bright. Is that bright? Not. Man, I knew I forgot something. How's it going, Killboy? KB, if you will. Alright. Am I here? Kind of weird. I usually take a moment to get this all set up before I start streaming. And somehow completely slipped my mind this time. And my light's a little messed up because I moved it last night for the missus. Dim it a little bit. Obviously not prepared. Good old Motsy. Never ready for anything. God, it's so bad now. Of course it's going to be terrible while I'm trying to like get ready to stream. Okay, maybe a little warmer light. A little warmer? That's me, right? Half my face is gone because apparently I'm shiny right now. I'm Motsy so shiny. All right. Well, I'm here. I'm going to deal with half of my face being too shiny, I guess. I could darken the light there. Wow. Oh, it's the wrong side. Then I go away. Man. Well, you get what you get. I'm Motsy. I'm here. And I'm going to throw a fit. Hope we all doing well tonight. I think the music is okay, the level. I got a new microphone. It's basically exactly the same as the old microphone, but newer. And actually, this is totally stupid. I mean, it's not important to streaming, but, well, not what I'm working on. But I have these Apple AirPods with the mini stereo plug-in. My other headphones wouldn't work with them. And I'd also like move the little headphone jack around to get the channels working properly. Now it works. It works. I have a better set of headphones in my ear for streaming. I like it. No more of these like crappy old ones. This is what I've been streaming with. Doesn't even have, these are like old AirPod or AirBuds, and they don't even have like the little rubber thing around. No, I didn't stream on Tuesday. So I think I talked about this on Saturday, last Saturday. Somehow when Composy was out of town, which would have been a week ago Thursday, I had the kids all to myself, and on Wednesday night I had some leftover pizza that had some chicken on it, and I highly suspect this was the result of my subsequent problem the next day on Thursday. So it was Wednesday night, and then Thursday night I had this issue. Oh, my microphone is peaking a little bit. Let me turn that down a little bit. So, bada jam. So it's a newer microphone, and it's obviously picking up sound better. So I got food poisoning, but not the throw up kind. The other kind of throw up. Throw down, if you know what I mean. And it was affecting me. It's been affecting me all the way until, even yesterday. So I've been chugging the Pepto-Bismol. So Tuesday, it was like, it started to go away, and then it came back, and I was like, I can't do this. I'm not going to stream. I know that's a bit much and a lot of TMI, but that's what happened. So it's okay, because I spent a lot of time Tuesday night working on stuff that I think if I did it on stream, it would have been less interesting. It's probably not going to be that interesting tonight either, but what I did then and what I did all day today would be even less interesting. So, whatever. I'm here. I'm working on nodes, and I'm going to reset my brain because I just had like dinner and all that stuff. And I'm going to remember what it was I was working on. So when we last met, Armatzi, last Saturday, I was working on the node-based system and how to transition from the current sort of Smile Game Builder way of playing battle actions to a new approach. I don't actually remember where I got on Saturday, but I started working on this notion of this sort of like action graph, so to speak. I don't think I even had this on Saturday, but essentially I'm rebuilding the node system that I have to not be so closely coupled with the Smile Game Builder system. And I've spent a lot of time exploring the concepts I want to apply. I mean, using some of the concepts from Smile Game Builder, but also then making it more modern and not relying on the Smile Game Builder script runner system. So at the end of the day, what I have now, and it took me until today to completely revise the underlying core architecture of the node-based system that I'm using for the battles, which eventually I could also use for other things. So I kind of did this in mind, like, okay, we have the old system, it works. I'm not going to go changing it all around, but if I choose to, for some newer stuff, I could use the newer node system, which hopefully will be more efficient because it won't be going through like 10 layers of other code to make things happen. Because the current node-based system is highly obnoxious. And I think like one of my favorite examples is this walk command, which does the player walking. There's multiple layers of data, and then when it comes to execution, I have to use this script builder that generates commands to pass into Smile Game Builder's script running system, and then the Smile Game Builder script running system actually runs the code. This has been the source of a lot of debugging problems because I can't just look at the code as it's executing in real time. I've got to go hunt down where it's executing in the context of Smile Game Builder. And it's just like it's kind of like a mind F. It's a mess. It's a mind mess because when I'm writing the commands, I have to always think, okay, this code doesn't execute immediately. It always executes afterwards. So the graph was more like a thing to set up the code that's going to be executed, and then the code gets executed afterwards. I mean, it's worked. I mean, the game works, right? There's no problem fundamentally with the game functioning, but it just makes it really hard to maintain over time. And so I spent a lot of time sort of thinking and chat GPTing and then kind of picking and choosing the pieces that I thought would be valuable and coming up with the approach that I want to use. I'm going to put my glasses on, my coding glasses, mainly because the brightness of the light is bothering my eyes. A little photosensitive, I guess. But if I don't look cool enough, just tell me and I'll take them off. Do I look cool now, like a cool gamer dad? I think so. I'm going to say yes, unless someone says no. And then I guess I'll just bow to the whims of the masses. So this is the old system, and there's a lot of components to the old system that were problematic. Let me go to grab. I'm doing this for anyone interested. That down a notch. I'm doing this for anyone interested in like how this system works, but also to buy myself time to think about what I'm going to work on next. I need to make sure the enhanced battle system at least works, which I had to completely revise. Like I had to refactor everything today, but then I need to start working on the new stuff. So if we look at the current system here, here's the walk node. The walk node has a lot of different pieces to it that are a lot more complicated than it appears at first blush. So if I make a walk node, for instance, we have options like, oh, is it the player? Or is it a follower of the player, which means some character in your party? Is it a named object you can just give text to? So if I know what the name of the object is, or do I need to find a target that's on the map? This is a list of all the objects on the map that have events tied to them. There's a Smile Game Builder system, right? So Smile Game Builder uses events and they're named, and when they're set up in Smile Game Builder, this is literally, I mean, look at this. Set current map name variable 222222222. This is really Jacob's fault because he doesn't name things right. He just like copy and paste something and then he ends up with these weird numbered things, which it just drives me nuts. I couldn't work in Smile Game Builder without trying to name things appropriately, but whatever. So when I'm trying to control something on a map through a cinematic sequence or otherwise, I have to make something that knows how to reference it. That's a target, like a targetable thing. And then I got to decide where I want to walk the thing, right? So I have to make all these decisions just in the scope of configuring whatever sequence I want to happen. And then in the actual node, when we execute it, I've got to use all that configuration to decide what happens when this executes, right? So it's like, oh, here's the execute thing. Well, we have these options that are set. We have questions about whether they're followers or not. We have to set up the walk command. The setup walk command, this is like one of the more complicated nodes. It looks at the type of option. And right now what I'm doing is I'm literally calling, I'm using my script builder I made ages ago to generate that command. So this is actually like, this is going into my script builder. It's creating a walk command. It's pushing parameters into it, then it's adding that command to the script runner. It's just like, oh my god, it's so obnoxious. I mean, it is insane. So I had to figure out like, okay, obviously I don't want to use my script builder anymore. However, there's a problem. There's a context problem. This is a programming paradigm that's fairly ubiquitous, meaning most systems have to worry about it, but different systems handle this concept in different ways. So if you were to use Java, Java is very good at the notion of context at almost the insanely verbose level. Like the idea of using a container of things that you're going to pass around. That's what context is like. Here's some data that we're working with. I'm going to pass around a single object that has all the data in it, rather than the walk command, having to go find it all, right? So the walk command has to make some assumptions of what the context is, but it doesn't have to generate any of it. It's usually the controlling thing. It's like the game engine or the system engine, if it's a web app, or it's some lower level, something below that. Like, you have the top level application, and then some level below that, you have things that generate different contexts that shoot that context off to things that need it in order to execute. At least I'm putting this in the simplest terms as I can. There's also this concept of what's called the dependency injection, which is effectively a way of creating context through what they call containerization, or dependency injection containers. Containerization is also a whole different concept, but for like servers and stuff. But so you create this dependency injection container that when you say, I want this type of class or object, it knows how to generate it, and it knows what the context is at the time that it does that injection. All of these things are, sorry to say this, if you're a game dev out there, and you're only a game dev, a lot of these are concepts, I would say many indie devs probably don't touch on very often. Or maybe even need. Maybe I don't need them, except that I tend to create more complicated solutions than some people might, because I think they're better. Who knows? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but I like them, and that's what matters. I got like There's like, it's like my wife's hair stuck in my shirt and it's poking my back. Every once in a while I get this like random long hair in my clothing. It's like, that's definitely not mine. What is this? Ah, it's driving me nuts. Oh, did I get it? I might have. Okay, so context. So one of the problems is if I'm going to create my own equivalent of this, how do I still have the notion of, players and followers? How do I know what I'm targeting? And so part of the concept that I haven't even fully implemented yet is called a target resolver, which is a way in which I can say, okay, I don't really care how you resolve this. All I'm going to say is, for this command, I need to resolve this type of target. And then the resolver would have some hook into some context, and then it would decide how to resolve it for you. And so that's one of the concepts I had to extract from the way I do that. That's actually one of the more nasty ones. How we do context was also kind of nasty. And so I don't know if tonight I'll get a chance to work on this, but I do want to do equivalent motion level nodes, but I want to do them without having to be so tied into Smile Game Builder. You'll be picturing Composy rubbing her head on your clothes while doing laundry, much like a cat. Yeah. Oh, don't worry. Much like a cat, she wouldn't have to do that. The hair just naturally floats everywhere in the house, right? It's just like, it could be one of my kids' hair because I have 2 daughters too that have long hair. Whatever. It's not my hair, obviously. My hair is not long enough for that. Hey, Rome, by the way. Nice to see you. I know that not everything's going well, but I hope that you're managing. By the way, okay, I'm going to pause on the technical talk. I just started listening to the audiobook for that Salvation book I told you about. The one that has, they have basically, there's like 2 different timelines. There's like the, 2022, 2200, the 2200s, which is where it's like this precursor to to something, an event that's going to happen. And then there's something way in the future that's like highly advanced civilization. Oh, Hillfort Games, thank you for the raid. 3.5 hours working in your shower. Oh yeah, I heard you got all that stuff. Hillfort Games, thank you for the raid. Welcome to the 16 other or 15 others that joined along. I'm Motzi. I make stuff. This is what I make. Apparently my bot's not working, so that's not what I make. Lazy Turtle. Hello. I was talking about my node system and then I got sidetracked. Cookie PMWA, thanks for the follow. Why is the music seeming like exceptionally loud today? I have a new mic and I think I messed up the settings. All right, thanks for the raid and run. I hope you had a good stream. Thanks for bringing your peoples with you. Lazy Turtle, thank you for the follow. I'm going to go see why my bot is not working. I'm going to see what that's a bot. Hope you like my glasses. I have I've alternated wearing these. These are just like gamer glasses I got at PAX. But tonight, for whatever reason, my light feels exceptionally bright. This seems to offset it a little bit. So I'm managing somehow. I can't get my browser to work. I have this weird streaming issue where my browser decides it's Chrome. It doesn't want to work. I don't know why. But I can show you guys the game anyway. Here we go. Is this our game? This is our game. Copy pasta. This is the game I'm working on. It's on Steam. And pretty much I work on this all the time. Well, other than having a day job. So check it out. If you're interested in retro style JRPGs, this is one of them. I can even pull it up on my Steam account that I've opened. This is one of those 3-hour tour games. What I mean by that is when my partner and I started working on it, because we thought it would be a cool idea, we said we'd give ourselves like a year and a half to release it, and we're on year 4 right now. To our defense, I would say that part of the reason we're on year 4 is because as we developed it, we saw some success in a number of areas, and we wanted to expand it to make it a better game than we originally set off to do. But that also entails extended timelines. It is on early access, and we do have some updates coming soon that we're going to share with everybody, but we can't quite say a ton about it. The one thing that we can say is that there is an event called OTK Winter Games Expo. And again, unfortunately, my browser is just literally not working for some reason. I don't know what it is about streaming that does this. OTK Winter Games Expo. It's this event where they take like indie games or up and coming games in the world community, and they showcase them. So we're going to be part of that event if you guys are interested. I don't know exactly what it's going to entail. I think every game that's part of it gets like a small blurb where they play it, they talk a little bit about it, they show a new trailer, and so we'll have some updates coming for everybody. Rome, if you're still there, what I was going to say was the book has this utopian society, or they're called utopians, that are all gender fluid, or they're not non-binary because they're all like male female. It's almost like they're all hermaphrodite, but their sexuality shifts through phases somehow. I'm not sure how that part works, but they all use the ze, zer, them pronouns, which is weird listening in the audiobook because I can't tell if the reader is stating the pronouns right, because the zer, the X pronouns are really hard to differentiate sometimes. But that just is really interesting. It made me think of you because I talked about it before, and I was like, well, I'm finally listening to that book again and seeing how it goes. I have nothing against that part of the story. It's just the story is a little slow for me. But it's like, I'll try it. We'll do it. Just like the first book is almost like a prologue to the actual story. Yeah, there's like legitimate gender fluidity. Like I was just in a portion of the book where there's like in the far future, there's this combat school basically, and the heads of the school are all the gender fluid people. There's like there's like 2 different races. There's like the binary gendered humans that are being trained, and then there's the fluid gender humans, and they actually have phases where they say, oh well, so and so's in their feminine phase, and watch out for that person because the feminine phases have different like indicators of how they act or something. And it wasn't it's hard for me to describe it, but I just thought it was really funny where it's like, oh well, Zir's in their female phase, so watch out because I'm really going to get in trouble for this thing. It's like, I thought you would find it interesting just because of how they represent that in the book. They talk about these characters that are gender fluid, but they decide or not to have facial hair, for instance. So anyway, unrelated to working on nodes, for those who may have stuck around from the raid, what I'm working on tonight is my node system. And I was kind of going through the process of explaining what I've been doing. This system here is our old node system. It's not really old. I mean, it's actively being used for the game. But when I say old, I mean it was tightly coupled to the engine that is underneath everything. Well, I mean, if you would accept a gift, Rome, I'd be happy to send you either the book or the audiobook. I don't know how you feel about that, but there's a story that is sci-fi that's really about like aliens and, you know, this sort of subterfuge and stuff. But then there's also, you know, this whole representation that exists. So it's kind of funny if you think about it. Like, yeah, there's representation in the story, but that's not like the reason for the story. It's just part of the universe. The author, I think, tries to envision what futuristic society would look like. In his view, there would be some component of that, because why not? Right? Once you get so technically advanced, you can do whatever you want. So yeah, I just think that's funny. So anyway, I'm working on this node-based system, and I was talking a little bit about like context, having to get information about players and followers and characters on the map. So this is the old system. This is a lot of stuff. It's old in that it's very, very, very tightly coupled. The new system I am tying to our battle system. So we have a battle engine that came with the engine we started with, and I'm working on completely revising it. Step one of that was to take their heavily case statement code and turn it into Mother Brain. This is Mother Brain. This is the representation of all of the states that exist in the current battle system, with essentially just nodes that hook into the code that was already there, with some modifications that I've made. Now I'm working on adjusting overall how some of this works, but there's a key part of this where once the player action is determined, these three nodes, these three nodes, these are what actually enact the animation that you see. So these three nodes, play action animations, display message, and play reaction animations. These are the things that play the like sword chop or the, you know, whatever. That's it. So you have entire Mother Brain, and then you have those two nodes. I didn't intend to make this a brain, by the way. It's just, I had originally made all this, and then I was like, oh, I need to add this selection thing. And then I put all this stuff down and it's like, oh, that's funny. It looks like a brain. What is that face? Jinx. Felix, you've been watching the Arcane? Ooh, it hits hard. I don't know how you feel about. I don't know if you like League of Legends but not the show, or you like the show but not League of Legends. I don't play League of Legends at all, but I like the show. Yeah, so this is the brains, right? You're still on season 1? Okay, well, buckle up. I didn't really like season 1, like the first couple episodes. They were okay, but I was like, okay, I'm not totally into this story. I don't know about League of Legends. But once I got past it, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. I like the overall thrust of the story. So this is the battle system. If I were to show you like what it looks like under the hood, battle sequence manager. This is like the insanity of it. So these are all battle states. This is a state-driven system. This is probably like, you know, 95% of anyone who are going to do a battle system would probably do something similar to this. Unless you're using Unreal, then you would just use blueprints. So there's like I think it's called is it update? Update battle state, I think. This is it. Look at this. Battle state, start flash, fade out. And then, so everyone, this is like a 3,000 lines of code or 2,000 lines of code. And it just does logic checks and makes things happen. And the way this works is if it passes through, which means like, let's say it's on start flash, but the flash hasn't finished, then it just keeps on every frame, it reloads and does this again until finally the battle state can change. And then it just jumps around this thing. It is all over the place. It is not a bad system in terms of, wow, I cannot believe somebody came up with this and was able to maintain it. It is a little bit hard to maintain as a developer who didn't write the code. And I think it's, you know, it's obviously dated in terms of the approach. So I had been dealing with this for years, literally now, and I decided that I would move this whole system into nodes. So what I ended up doing was taking these different states and kind of segmenting them out into logical components that became the nodes that you see here. So like battle start, for instance. Battle start's probably actually the easy one. But if I take like update turn order, right? That'd be a good one. So I have a node called update turn order. Update. Can I spell? No. Update turn order node. Okay. So I made nodes where now I've just recently refactored this. It used to be an execute statement, but now it's just the node getting next node. And this is the code from Smile Game Builder, but segmented out into chunks that I feel are more manageable. So I can actually figure out where things are in the battle. I could put breakpoints and points in the battle to see what happens there, rather than having to like sort through a 3,000 line file and find the different states and things like that. So that's step one, right? Step one was just, can I make it somewhat manageable? I didn't even change anything major about how battles work. I did change some, like, I did tweak a couple things because Smile Game Builder's battle system is more like the classic Final Fantasy. I don't know if you guys know what Smile Game Builder is, but I'll bring it up so you guys can see it. So their base engine uses a Final Fantasy like queue up the actions and then play the actions approach. So the problem with that is you don't get a chance to make informed decisions on your moves because you're like, well, we'll play it out and see what happens, right? And we wanted to do more like the modern turn-based where you take an action, it does the thing, and then there's a turn order that you get to see who goes next. So I actually, under the hood, set it up so it can do that. So I did make some fundamental changes, but for the most part, a lot of this code is still roughly how the Smile Game Builder system does it. All of this stuff is the new stuff. This is the new stuff that uses Unity UI to show things like the attack options and so on. So what I spent the last 5 days doing, not purely because I have a day job, was revising my new node system so that I can eventually get to playing my own animations. Because right now this play animation thing, it's also kind of absurd. So I do like play action animations nodes. What it ends up doing is like triggering an action on the character. Like execute command start is like a battle actor, and it tells that actor it's going to play some kind of motion. And there's actually, I think it's the Battle Viewer 3D that does this, but here it is, execute action. So like if there's an attack action, this is literally what happens when the attack action, so it says, okay, get the battle player information, set up the animation times, cue this action to happen to the actor state to change the actor state and play their animation, potentially move the player depending on what you need to do, and so on. So all this happens within some random class, well, battle viewer class, and that's the thing that controls the movement. Very hard to change how that works, and I want a lot more flexibility in managing the characters in battle than I have with their system. So that's where it sort of started with my desire to make our own custom actions in a way that doesn't tie into their system as strongly, and then turned into me completely refining some of my code. Did Smile Game Builder not open? Did I click on you? It doesn't seem to be opening for some reason. Oh, there it is. Weird. I thought I clicked on it, but I guess I didn't for some reason. So this is Smile Game Builder. Smile Game Builder is a much older engine. We've been working on this project for almost 4 years. So beginning of 2021, Yeah, almost 4 years now, more than 3.5 years. Yeah, Felix, this is I haven't shown this to you before. Are you gonna say it's not the first time you've seen this? Smile Game Builder was what got me into doing game dev. I'm a chief technology officer in SaaS-based B2B work. I've done a lot of stuff in my career. I always wanted to do game dev, but if I think about having a full-time job and then kids and coming home after work and getting the motivation to work on something, it's very hard. The barrier to entry is very hard. And so I wanted to find an engine that would make it easy for me to just kind of mess around, just as I learned stuff about game dev. And that's how I kind of got into it. Even though I know how to code, I was like, I don't want to learn how to use Unity. It's too much coding, right? And so I learned how to use this tool. This is a very limited tool. But this has a battle system built in with it. And it's got like a scripting system. All of this stuff is code, C# code, that is sort of retrofitted into Unity through an export tool that they have. But so it's like, you know, it's interesting little, I mean, it's not a bad engine, really, right? But this is what their commands look like, right? They're just the UI. I mean, I can't even believe that UIs like this still exist in 2020. What is this, 2024? So this is the engine that has the battle system that I have all the underlying code for. And I could work at Smile Boom now because I know the ins and outs of their engine. I don't think they could afford me, but I could work there. So where I was going with the whole direction of my effort, because what I was starting to do was just explain what I'm working on tonight, and then I just went into this whole, rundown of everything. So these nodes are from a thing called Xnode. Xnode is a open source library that provides scriptable object-based node programming, and it doesn't give you anything for free. You get the node structure, and then that's it. The rest of it is up to you. So it's not like getting visual scripting or some other assets that give you like pre-built nodes. You make whatever nodes you want. You're also responsible for making your own runner to run the nodes. And what I spent since Saturday doing was revising the thing that runs these nodes. These nodes are the new version of my other system of nodes, so that it can somewhat replicate how the Smile Game Builder scripting system works, but not use the Smile Game Builder scripting system at its core. It's like I have this base graph runner that I made that I spent a whole lot of time enhancing. I'm going to get rid of this stupid method. I left this around for a second because I did lots of refactoring. Basically, like, oh God, there must have been like 35 classes here showed as red. And I had to go one by one and just go make a bunch of tweaks to them because I did massive refactoring to how this works, how the base nodes work, how the structure is put together. I did a lot of thinking about how all this stuff comes together. And so this graph runner is just a class that you use however you want. And basically I can set it up. I can get a runner. I can get a graph. As long as I have a graph, I can do whatever I want. So I get the graph and then I can traverse the nodes. So the graph itself doesn't give you anything about execution. It just says I'm a graph and I have nodes, and it stores the data. And then you choose what you want to do with that information. You can jump all over the place randomly if you want to, or you can follow the path of the nodes. And the nodes just have outputs, and then you decide, how does a node decide what the output is, right? You code the node to make those decisions. So all of that stuff is like work you have to do, but it's not super hard once you kind of get a pattern, which I have now. So what I'm getting to now is like, when you have all this stuff, the nodes are scriptable objects. You can't store information on them at runtime, or you risk breaking your your data. You can store information in the form of, like, I think properties, maybe. I think you can. I'm not even sure if you can, but I certainly do it, so we'll find out how that works. But the idea is that they're supposed to be stateless, and you use a runner to pass in context, and that was where I think before the raid I was talking about context. And context is just data that you want to pass around. And so what I actually started my work on refining the context by creating a container, which is like a DI container, but it doesn't do creation of objects. It just holds data for you, right? So the base container is just a dictionary that can take any sort of I context, I-based context, that is, which is just an interface that represents the type of class I would accept here. There's nothing in the interface at all. And so the calling classes, the thing that calls the runner, has to be responsible for populating the context. So that's the first of all, there's just me making sure that I can get context into the system and let the nodes use that context. I think what would be a good... Oh, here's something in my Bexel. Darn hairs. I was complaining about this before. I live in a house of people with lots of hair. And no pets though. And every once in a while I get like these random long hairs that are stuck in my shirt. Obviously not my hair, because I don't have any long hair anymore. Not that I ever did. So, where was I? I was talking about... Do I get distracted? Yes. Yes, I do. If I go into one of these nodes, like the update turn order node, for instance, we pass in context. And since this is in battle context, I have something that like creates the battle context, because really these nodes shouldn't work outside of battle. So if there isn't battle context, this actually won't run. And then I use that context to get things like, oh, what's the battle sequence manager? That's the thing that manages sequence level stuff. Or, what's the runner state? Like, what's the next node? What's the last node? And then I use those things in crafting my different nodes to process them. But we also have the notion of commands. So this is something I kind of went back and forth on a lot. So Smile Game Builder has something called commands. Commands are just units of execution. What I was showing earlier was this like, here's a script command. That's what Smile Game Builder uses. Just a generic object that can take an arbitrary number of attributes that then get passed into their script runner. And based on the command type, the script runner will execute whatever the command is. It's very old school style. I'm sure it's fast-ish, probably. But it also looks like this. I mean, I'd scroll down and show you the entire method, but I'd have to get down to like 2,500 on the line number, so that would take a while. But this is this gigantic case statement. I'm sure it's fast enough. Not worth it. Computers are fast. This is not what I want to do with my life. Sort through a gigantic list of case statements. But this is how the current system, like the Smile Game Builder system, works. This is what I'm trying to get rid of, right? Probably because I have an object-oriented background and I'm not as into functional programming languages. Captain Krabs, I'm here for the nodes. Yeah, I was showing the nodes. It's Node Buddy's business, but your own. Here's my notes. See, look at the nodes. They're so nodey. So I was talking about the breakdown of what I'm obviously not accomplishing right now because I'm talking about it instead of doing. Yay, nodes! This is X node, and so what I came up with was, so nodes need a few things to process, but nodes are not meant to be code executors. I kind of break that rule a little bit in my battle node system, because all of these ones that are gray are using the old like Smile Game Builder sequence managing, and I didn't want to do away with that code. I didn't want to make a command for every one of these because they don't really fit the context of a command, right? These are just like pure execution, right? It doesn't make any sense. And so I kind of broke the rule a little bit because there's executable code that happens, but it ultimately just leads to what do you do next, right? So it triggers things that happen, but then it just moves on to the next thing. But ultimately what I see nodes as what they should be are containers for commands. So there's flow, like decisions that need to be made. Where do we go with the branches? What node do we load next? And then there's execution or commands that would be like, let's play an animation of a character on the screen, or let's set a value or whatever. So commands, in my view, are a unit that need to be collected and executed, but not by the node, because the node really, again, I kind of had this epiphany that they really shouldn't be doing a lot of work. They're a little bit too smart for me right now, but I just, I can only do so much, right? So, the difference is like this walk node. This is like the old style I use. The story-based node is the old system. Actually, this isn't as complicated. I didn't make this one very smart. I actually gave it a command, which is cool. You're using Nuke and Node, so I prefer them. Yeah, well, I come from software engineering side where I write the code for the nodes. I do the node code and I write the nodes. I node and node, So I do both sides of it. I create the nodes and I use the nodes. My partner in crime, Jacob, uses the nodes and he doesn't do any of the codes. So under the hood, though, the ideal is the nodes really just hold commands, and the rest of it is just like the node figuring out what it's doing next. But you can see here, I actually had by default an execute method as part of my nodes, which implies code execution. So I've changed that in my new system. So my new system has base nodes that they do have a lot. I did reuse the foundation of what I used for my other node system. Like there's an output. They always have one input. I don't have multiple input nodes right now. I don't see a need for it yet. So until I do, I'm not going to make it. But there's one single input nodes and then potentially multiple outputs. But every node has one input and one output by default, and then I can turn those on and off if I extend the node to some degree. They all have the graph that they're associated with, which is what the node lives on. So the node knows what their parent is, essentially, which I think that's fair to say, right? There's a one-to-one connection there. Well, one-to-many, but whatever. The nodes know their parent. And then they all have a couple of default methods. There's like a, on enter. That's when the script runner first touches the node. There's building commands is actually the thing that creates the list of commands that can be executed. There's get next node that says what's going to happen next. And then the rest of these things are just utility, right? So really the main thing a node does or should do is produce the list of commands and tell you where to go next. That's it. Again, like I was saying with the new system I have here, is this it? Finish effect. There's potentially multiple outputs. I don't know where I'm going here, but so like some of this get next node is a lot more robust than I want it to be, but that's partially a factor of me trying to get the Smile Game Builder battle sequence manager stuff to do what it currently does without me having to completely rewrite all of their code. Other than breaking it up and like tweaking it, I didn't completely change all of their code. You can see I even left their switch statements in because I didn't want to deal with that. So in our base node though, here, we have this thing called commands. And the way that I did it, for better or for worse, the way you have to make editing tools available, like the ability to have like, a field in here. I either have to make a custom editor or I use Odin Inspector, which works with these nodes. And so my thinking is that every command really is the thing that I would want to have the UI for configuring the command. And the nodes would just reference those commands. But with Odin, you need to be able to have that reference. Oh no. Okay. I think I just messed that up and I can't use my undo, unfortunately. I don't know what I don't know what that was before. We'll just pretend that it'll be fine. So what was I saying? Oh, in order for Odin to show like a list like this, like if I go to battle action type branch, this is a field that has some attributes that determine how that displays. So if I have a command, I still have to have a field with attributes. Otherwise, I have to use a list, and then it gets a little messy to deal with. So my general going in thought process on how I'm going to do these nodes, which is already set up this way, is I'll just make fields that have commands. So I get like three, usually there's only going to be one command per node. If there's two or three, it's going to be a really complicated node, but it's going to be something I have deemed necessary to make that work. So it's not the most efficient approach, but essentially the default approach for collecting the nodes is using some reflection to find the fields and then creating a command queue. The part that I'm hesitant about with this is, if you do things frame by frame, this could get expensive. However, this only happens once. It only happens the first time the node is entered. And I just can't see it as being a major performance hit. If it does, I'll change it. But essentially, it collects all of those nodes. I'm sorry. It collects all those commands. And then the graph runner is responsible for running them. Let's see. Graph runner. Base graph runner right here. So this is the way a graph runner works. So I can either repeatedly call run, and then if it's not running, it'll start it. Or I could call run, and then I could repeatedly call update in some update loop somewhere. It has a notion of parallel commands, which means that if a command is flagged as being parallel, it gets put into this queue, and it gets executed until it's done. Otherwise, it also has sequential commands. And so what happens is, like, it enters this update loop. First, it just tries to run any commands that it might have. If it doesn't have any commands, then it loads the next node. So if the current node has no commands, it just loads the next node. And then when it loads the next node, then that prepares all the next commands that it's going to run. So in here, it's just like, oh, okay. Do we have commands? Great. We'll put them in the command queue. Sequential commands, as defined, will run sequentially. Parallel commands, which happen, they get discovered. So a parallel command isn't parallel until it gets discovered as parallel, right? They all come in as sequential, but then when the processor runs to process commands, it will detect that is parallel and then push it into the parallel queue. So you're like, it peeks at the first one, if it's not already running, it's going to call some setup methods. And then if it is running, it's going to call execute. And execute is the one abstract method that is fully, the command is fully in charge of. If it returns true, it's done. If it returns false, it's not. So a command that returns false, it will keep running that command until it returns true. It's kind of an interesting system. I did borrow heavily from the way Smile Game Builder works. So you see this update loop would happen every frame. So on every frame, any parallel command is run, and if they're done, they're removed from the parallel commands. Simple, right? If there are sequential commands, it's going to peek at whatever current one is there, start it if it's not started, and then execute it. Once that execute returns true, it's going to remove that from sequential commands, tell that command to finish, and then move on to the next one. So it's just a little processor. It's just, it's not smart. It just keeps going. As long as it finds commands, it runs them. When it runs out of commands, it goes to the next node. If it runs out of any nodes, then it just completes the graph. So I've iterated a lot on graph runners. In the last 5 days, I think I've really got a solid picture of how I want this to run. I think I'm going to be curious to see how this ends up working. But just like the Smile Game Builder system, the way their command system works is every update loop gives a command a chance to run one frame. Now, I don't have an example of commands that exist right now because I haven't started. This is what I was going to start working on tonight after I spend an hour talking. But the idea would be, for instance, if I was going to do a walk command, walk doesn't happen in one frame. Walk might take hundreds of frames, depending on how far the character is going to walk or whatever. So if you're going to do a walk command, the first execution is going to start the walking, but it's going to say, well, I'm not done walking. So it'll say false. And then every frame, the frame is going to increment the walking. And so incrementally make the character move until it finishes. And then it says, okay, I'm done walking, command done. You can move on to your next thing. Or potentially I can make it a parallel command, and then the walk will start and keep processing while other commands are going. I'll be curious to see how this ends up working, because I haven't really fully tested using a graph runner for the equivalent of the Smile Game Builder script runners. But I think it'll work. It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. This is why I name my stuff so clearly. I don't use single letter variables. I can't do the Wallaber method because I'm not going to be able to go back and look at this stuff later and be like, oh yeah, I know what C means. C means cool. So I absolutely need, better indicators of what I'm working on. Okay, so now that I'm done with all that talking, before I started streaming, I was trying to get the battle system working again. Because in order to make all these changes I did to the nodes, I had to go back and refactor every single node you see here. And now I'm having an issue when we select target. So I actually need to go, I think, debug it and see what happens. So keep in mind too, the new battle system that I'm working on is very much in the I've broken a lot of things phase. So it doesn't look pretty. It doesn't act pretty. It doesn't try to be pretty. It just tries to be itself, which is very not pretty. I say that as a caveat because you can be like, oh my gosh, your battle system sucks. Yeah, well, the real game system that exists now is the older one, and it's not broken like this one is. Like the whole intro here and how that's all weird and janky. Partly it's because the debugger's running, and I'm streaming, so it makes everything look janky. But I haven't refined anything. None of the visuals are right. It's just I've put a lot of placeholder stuff just so I could see how it will look. The pretty comes later. That's what I'd like to say. So I got this part working. Yay. But when I select to attack, nothing happens. So this is what I got to figure out. What is going on here? Why is the target selection not working? I got to remember what node we're actually looking at. Let's see. So we are on the select battle actor target. There we go. That's the one we're on. I wanted to put indicators that show which node we're on, but I tried that in the beginning and I couldn't figure out how to, I couldn't get it to work for some reason. So I just gave up, but I should do that at some point. Battle actor select. Is that what it is? Is it target? Select battle. There you go. Select battle actor target. Oh, hey, look, here we are. So we don't want that. We want to see what happens when we submit the target, I think. Excuse me. It could just be like it's not triggering that or something. Oh no, okay. So runner can continue as true. Output node is process attack action. So this is actually all correct. So something else is going on. I think I know what's going on. I think I know exactly what's going on. Okay, hold on a second. Let me go. Let's just make sure. Actually, I can tell simply. So can continue gets set to true. My guess is by the time it loops around, can continue. Oh, and actually it might be this problem. It's either that can continue is being set to false, or this is overriding what should already be set. Let's find out, shall we? What's can continue? Okay, so it's this thing. Okay. I got it. Piece of cake. It was one or the other. So it's not selecting. Part of the issue about my new setup is this used to be an execute command, so it just returned true or false. And I cheated and said, well, I'll just move it all to get next node, which is fine. But then I had to change how I determined whether we could continue. So what I would need to do here is, I kind of want to do it at the end of this, not at the beginning of it. I'm going to check if we can continue. Why are you doing this? If we can't continue, then we just set it to this. So the only time we would set it to the next node being this is telling it to just keep looping the node, is if we can't continue. I think that's a reasonable way to do that. So my current plan, my plan when I started tonight was not to spend an hour talking about how all this node stuff works. Although I'm happy to talk about it. Hopefully people gleaned information. It's a lot. I thought I was going to, by this point, have just the battle stuff working like I wanted it to. Because I got to get the full battle sequence stuff working, because I went and changed 30 plus files. And then once that's working, I can try to look at messing with the new commands and actions. I was reflecting to myself that, when you're a junior developer, making refactoring to like 30 or 40 files is a bad idea. It's like, don't do it. Don't try to go refactor all the code. You will break everything. But I'm totally comfortable with it now, because I knew what I know more of what I'm doing. In theory, knock on wood. Don't refactor everything, Felix. Don't do it. Watch out. But I've done it. I've done the thing where you refactor everything and like, uh-oh, and then you have to just completely scrap all the code. Part of the problem is like you're not really refactoring, you're just moving code around when you're a junior, because you really don't know how to refactor. And so what happens is you end up just changing things because it feels better to you, like to your style, but it doesn't actually make anything better. Whereas, I think I'm trying to make things better. Like I am trying to be more methodical about it. I knew what I was doing when I made the changes, and it actually turned out a lot of the refactoring stuff I had to do was just mostly cleanup. It wasn't a lot of change to how things functioned. There's almost no change to how things function. Well, Atlas, you look a little stuck there, buddy. You want to get unstuck, maybe? Let me guess. It's going to be the recovery phase. I think. It's going to be play reaction animations, I'm guessing. I bet you it's the same thing. Maybe. I think it is. I think what's happening is... Oh, maybe it's not. Because it's not even hitting this code. So that means it's hitting the... It's either hitting display action message or stuck on battle action execution. So let's find out. Display action message. Do we see an action message? No, we don't. It says Hornet. Well, actually, maybe it does. Maybe it is this one. How am I not myself? Wait, that's not what we want. We want... Okay, so it's not that. So it is the my added code here. Is it? Why is it? How can I get back to my... Something stopped. Hopefully it's not about to crash. Let's go into here. What we'll do is we'll do this and this. Sometimes Unity and the debugger get weird. Although now I'm kind of wondering if it has crashed. It might have crashed. Debugger is not starting. This is not a good sign. No. I might have to force quit, maybe? Let's see. Oh, good. It force quit for me. How considerate. Thank you, Unity, for force quitting my game for me. I must have hit a memory limit. That's risky. It'll just take 10 minutes for it to reconstitute itself. So I'm going to have to turn the debugger back on once Unity decides to load. So we'll have to wait another 30 seconds after that. So in advance of that, I'm going to just tell a dad joke. If you want to make some easy money, just take some photographs of salmon dressed in human clothing. It's like shooting fish in apparel. That's a good dad joke. Wah, wah. Okay, let's go turn the debugger back on and, hope it doesn't all completely break again. My guess is that I'm not even going to guess. We're going to find out. Should be pretty straightforward to find the bug. Don't think we're in a difficult spot here. One thing I do like about working on this stuff compared to web application development is that in application development or Unity development or game development, your app, unless you're doing a massively multiplayer online game, the app itself is all contained in the computer. So setting up and testing it is just there. You have like a SaaS-based app. Sometimes there's components to the system that you don't have available. Then you got to figure out how to like either mock it or pretend that it's there or have some, fully set it up if you need to. It's such a pain in the butt. Okay, debugger's running. We're not hiding anything. Let's do this. Let's Excuse me. Burp him? I hardly know him. I burped. Let's do this. Come on, come on, come on. We got it. Yep. There's no name for this map because I didn't put any localized name, I think. I should make it default to whatever the map name is. All right, anyway, so let's find out, shall we? Please don't crash again. Don't care about this one. Fine. All right, so on target, submitted. We're good. Now we push a loop node. Yeah. Recycle, reduce, reuse, and close the loop. We call on enter. Let's see what we got here. What do we got? What do we got? What do we got now? So next node equals null. Current output index. So this is determining the next node is going to be one of the ones we set up. This is going to be the... So this is a jumper. We're jumping. We've already jumped to a whole nother graph. Hey, Stoff. How are ya? If you were rating me, I'd invite you to join in on the conversation. Only fair since I did it to you. Wait, are you streaming tonight? Are you doing that thing where you come in and say hi and then you go stream? Is that what you're doing? I bet you're doing that. Let's go look at Twitch and see. One day I'll do that. Nah, busy. Okay, fine. So put you on the list to raid later. Okay, so we are getting the next node. So now I need to find out if it's the ending that's the problem. Oh. Please. What are you working on tonight? I assume you're working on something. Are you working on your Robodome game or your was it Playmate? What is the Playmaker? Play something with the word play in it. Trailer for Robodome. Oh, you're doing stuff I hate to do. All right. Playdate. There you go. Oh no, it got stuck. Oh no, where is it getting stuck? No. Come on, Graph Runner, we got it. Can we get you to stop here? Okay. So here's a problem. Sequential commands. There's no sequential commands. All right. If the count's 0 and current node is null, it's not. It's sending us back to the message node. Next node, we're getting the next one, which is null. If current... Oh, shiznit. If the next node is null... Let's try this again. I don't envy you just having to do art visuals. Okay, so the problem is it's getting stuck on an infinite loop. Next node is null. So this shouldn't do anything. Okay. But runner current node is the problem. Okay, so this is actually a problem in my logic. Can I stop this? Okay, good. All right. At least I could escape the madness. Okay, so we get the next node, but when we do the load, if it's null, we still have to set the current node to whatever the node is. So I think what I'm going to do is, no matter what, I'm going to run this bit of code here, right? So whether node is null or not, I still want to be able to essentially reset all these values. And then if it does exist, then we proceed. But if it doesn't exist, then it will just, everything will fall through. Okay. I was thinking about why people play dodgeball. Then it hit me. I feel like there's a better version of that joke out there. Well, what do I know? My pencil broke during the test. I wanted to keep going, but it was pointless. What else could you do with that? I went to go sharpen it, but it turned out it was just a receptacle for cigarettes. I was led ashtray. I don't know. Led astray. Led astray. Led ashtray. I guess you could just say led astray. Like, I was told there was a sharpener around the corner, but didn't find one. I was led astray. Just keep a joke going. Dig deeper. Yeah, that's right. I wish I could erase my terrible joke from the past, but that joke was a real number 2, you know what I'm saying? Oh, man. Let's try this out again. So target, I don't care about this one. Let's get rid of this stupid thing. All right, so we're gonna do the push node. Get next. Well, let me just see if I can just play it. What I'll do, I'll play it over here. Look at little Atlas shooting his little arrows. So cute. Okay, so it worked. That's good. Let's try some magic. Okay, here's another borked one. It's good to know. So this is the skill selection, which is not in my graph right now. Hold on. Let's go, Mother Brain. Let's do this. Okay, so this is skill menu and then select battle actual target. So this is not, skill selected is not working, which is probably the same problem as before. Battle action skill select state. No. What is it called again? Show battle skill menu. Right. So get next node. Here is the problemo. This is the problemo. So if, there you go. Because I'm pretty sure just like the one before, it's submitting it. It's just that this is like causing the weird issue. It's impressive that it like recovers anyway and like re-shows the menu. It's kind of neat. Like what was happening here is we close it, the menu would close because it says close the window. And we set all this stuff up for it to move on to the next thing. But because I was doing this, it would reload the node and it would show the menu again. I think that's neat. Uh-oh. Did Unity crash again? I don't see it running. Dang, man. That's annoying. It's not liking what I'm doing here at all. So my friend and I had, in math class once, we had graph paper, and we were doing like, you like set up a battle, like shooting people. And so we're like, pew, 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 pew. And the teacher came by and said, what are you guys doing? And I said, well, we're having a battle. And the teacher's like, that's not a battle. That's a graph fight. Graphite. I think I could refine that one. I think I have a career in stand-up comedy someday. Half clap. And there's at least one known comedian named Jeff out there. My first name is Jeff. I don't normally say that on stream, but you know, there you go. Actually, it's weird because when I'm at work, I forget. Like, I have to like remind myself who I am. Because if I like refer to myself in the third person, I have to say my first name, not Motzi. Because when I stream, I usually say Motzi. It's really weird. It's like this, like, okay, hold on. Who am I right now? I'm. Okay, so this should work, maybe. Let's go find out. I'm mildly annoyed that that crashed, but. Stoff, do people just call you Stoff everywhere? Or just in the online space? Or they call you your first name, your shortened version of your first name? Or they call you your full... It's starting to blur nowadays, yeah. I have a separation for me. Okay, it looks like for the most part things are working. Items might be broken because I don't think I think I have the same problem with items. Yeah, okay. I was pretty sure that I did not fix that one. The shortened version too common, yeah. Show battle items. So this is the same problem. Okay, that's easy. At least I have a fix for it, right? Thank you. I think everything else should be fine. So as long as I can confirm the items work, I guess I could also try doing running away from battle just for YOLOs. Should be able to move on to the actions. Because the thing that I want to do now is all that animation that takes place. Because like the interesting part about battles is that most of the logic happens before you see the action, unless it is a game that has some kind of quick time effect that that affects the battle. Usually it's all calculated and then whatever the calculation is displayed. It's not like it's randomly calculating it while the battle's happening. That's why the animation's like a couple nodes and then there's this big brain of all the different logic that happens in all the different like states and transitions and things like that. So now I want to make the actions happen. Very actiony. Actually, I do have a command that works because I have the debug command. That's the one command I made, I think. Let's go see if we can do these. Can I use items? Do some medicinal herbs. Dispelberry. Essence herb. Oh wow, the fingers are really in the wrong places. Okay, so the items work. And running away... That's funny. That is amazing. I didn't... So because the way the battle starts, where it shifts the camera, I haven't made the outro of that. So when the battle ends, it's got to shift back. So that's why that weirdness happened, which is kind of funny. Feature? Maybe. So I've made exactly one command with the new system, and it's a debug command. I think it's debug message command. Yeah, that's it. So this is an example of a command. So the way I was pointing to some of this stuff earlier, commands are the smart things. Commands are the things that you have to configure. So you have to have like some input to be able to say what the command can do. And then they have a few different steps. There's a setup of the command that stores the current information on the context. And then there's begin. We don't really need begin. I like the sort of over-engineering part of me likes the notion that there is a step in between setup and execute. That right now its primary goal is to do the running, but I can imagine that there would be things we would want to happen in the begin phase. You know, maybe setup and begin are the same thing. I don't know. So it could be that I've just over-engineered it, but like changing that later would, like removing a method, that will make a big difference. So then there's the execute, which is what is primarily where you code, and then finish is just any cleanup that needs to happen. There's also an idea where we could pause commands. I'm not really sure how we're going to use it yet, but now I'll be honest, while I did sort of brain a lot of this stuff, I used ChatGPT to, you know, bounce back and forth on, okay, what things make sense and what if I did this, and I had it generate some stuff for me. But a lot of this stuff is just like based a little bit on what Smile Game Builder does and some ideas I had on how I wanted to run our commands. Then there's like, you know, being able to specify that it's a parallel command or not. Okay, so let's consider what action I want to happen first. I think the first thing I want to be able to do is move a battle character. Now, in the game, we use the term walk. I kind of feel like the word move makes more sense, right? Move character node. Does move make more sense than walk? Why does it take me so long to code? Because I spend a lot of time thinking about the words I use. I suppose that walk implies move, like animation. Move does not. But maybe that's why I would want a move node and not a walk node. We also currently use the term walk for our other commands. Isn't it annoying? I mean, if anything, that's what I really like about ChatGPT is you can shorten the cycle of coming up with names. What I find is that half the time I know the name and I'll be like, hey, ChatGPT, give me some options. And it gives me a bunch of crap options. I'm like, okay, I'll go with the name I chose. It's like, it's sort of a way of forcing me to just make a decision. I don't know if I should use walk or move. Or move character. The more clear name is something like move character or move object or move something. Walk is very specific. Hey, Trixie. Physics have been taking up all of my free time. You know what? Physics takes up my time 24/7. Did you know that? Because I couldn't live without it. Not robotics, though. Okay, so walk or move. Should I use move character or walk character or walk? We already have a walk command. I think move object. I think move object is going to be the command name. You don't like my joke? You know, you have to have physics to exist. Like, there's never a time that I'm not involved with physics. Okay, so here's where I get... Hopefully the robotic stuff is going well, too, besides physics. Here's where I get, like... I'm a very much an over-engineer. Over-engineerer. Need to go to, like, Over-Engineers Anonymous. Because I get wrapped up in all the different possibilities. I've never been good as a developer that can just say, okay, we got to solve this problem. Let me just start solving this problem. It's always like, wait, hold on a second. Let me think about this. I physically can't. Ooh, they hold too much weight. Oh, man. Well, guess what, Trixie? If we give up the physics jokes, the weight is over. Because then there'd be no weight. Because there'd be no physics. Ah, applied MIT. I mean, physics. That's cool. I bet you'll get in because you're smart and stuff. Robotics has been better, but it's getting there. Okay. Give up the physics jokes. The wait is over. I mean, that's just like, hey, man, pendulum swings both ways with these jokes. Although I would say the velocity of my jokes are pretty terminal. You got me started. I can't, you know, a Motzi in motion. Puns in a Motzi pun in motion stays in motion. I don't know. Okay. I wanted to get back to my thought. So this is battle. Right? This is a battle system. It's building momentum. Oh, man. You fulcrumed up there, man. But we don't always want to... We don't just want to worry about battles. This is where I talk about over-engineering. Eventually, I will want graphs that are just associated with a map. And this is something with really critical maps. Oh, man. I gotta start thinking of other things that are physics related. I don't know enough physics terms, though. I could look them up. So if I'm gonna make a move node, I actually don't want the move node to be intrinsically tied to battle. Because the type of objects that it can move are basically the same. We're working on a map that has the same characters. They're just treated differently in battle. Which means that in battle, I don't actually want the move node to be in the battle section. I actually want it to be in my node graph section, right? Well, yes, I think. Excuse me. I think I would put it in here, in node commands. So pattern I've usually followed is like an actor. I'd probably say move actor or move character. Probably move actor. Move object, move actor. Because an actor implies there's more to it than just some random object on the scene, and I don't think I would just say move an object. Because there's more information needed, basically. So we'll try like I can just move command, move actor. We'll do that for now. What? Base? Oh, base node command. There we go. Why did I call it base? I should just call it node command. Is there even a node command class? I don't really like base node command. I mean, base does imply it's like the base of it, but node command is more. I keep wanting to call it that, so I'm going to just refactor it to. I was talking about refactoring earlier, and another factor of refactoring. Speaking of physics, is the refactoring tools are way better now than they used to be. When I was your age, when I was a kid programming, we had to refactor uphill both ways. Okay. Anyway. So we're going to return true for now. Let's just say it goes back. So we're going to talk about the real big elephant in the room is resolvers. So this is something that I actually harassed ChatGPT about, because I had to like brain this a ton. You can see like these are all the different conversations I've been having with it. Like I'd be like, here's what I'm thinking here. What do we think about this? So we have something called target resolvers. I haven't actually made the target resolver. Oh my God, what was that? Sorry about that weird sound. But this is sort of the last example of like, how do we make a target resolver work? And I was still kind of struggling with the way I wanted this to work. I didn't really love the fact that if you're going to resolve a target, you might get one or more targets back. So the context that I'm thinking about is I need an equivalent of what I was showing with the walk command earlier. The walk command was... Oh God, not that one. Oh no. River? Was it River Central? One of the rivers. I don't even know now. River North? Maybe it's River North. Yeah, River North. Here it is. Okay. This is like random crap that I added to this. So this is like the walk node from the outside. Player, follower, all this stuff is essentially a target I need to resolve somehow. And so the resolver has to somehow determine the options it's going to show in the editor and what material it produces at runtime. These only return one object, but in battle with the battle action system, if I have multiple targets that I want to have like a reaction, like all the allies get healed, I would have to play something on all of them to show the healing effect. So that's multiple targets that have to be resolved to make something play or make an action happen. So this is what I kept getting like really wrapped up when like, okay, so I'm going to make this idea of a target resolver and I'm going to have to write some code that represents the resolver. How do I deal with all of these different factors? And I actually don't know the answer yet. I don't think ChatGPT was able to give me enough that I can easily decide. But I think that I can I think I can sort of muddle through with the information I have. So we're going to just start making it and then see just how badly I mess it up. I think I started making the resolver actually. So let's go back to our code here. So base target resolver. Maybe I do, again, like I call it a base because it's abstract, I guess. I'll leave it as a base. So we have abstract and we have virtual. So the way, oh yeah, this is how I solved it. So basically what I did was you resolve a target, and if you have multiple, you can optionally override this resolve targets, which if you only have one, it'll just return the one in an array, basically. Right? That's how I solved that with the target resolver. So now I need to make a resolver for resolving an actor target. I think that's what I'll just call it. It's like an actor target. So we have a map target. Oh, a map target. That's what I actually call it. There's a target on the map. Okay. So I actually, because I did all that refactoring, I completely forgot that I had started this. I like, you know, it's like this, oh, I got to go here. And then all of a sudden, you ever like clean something in a house and you move? You're like, okay, if I move this, I'll just get under here real quick and clean. And then you realize, oh my God, I've got to like take everything out. And that's what I did. And then I forgot the fact that I was actually working on like clean the mirrors or something. Okay, so this is my representation of what a map target could be. There's player, there's follower. Problem is, if I'm in battle, a map target resolver would have to produce different information than what is here. So I have to make this resolver really smart or figure out a different way to represent the information. But I think it's fair to say that I'm on a map and I want to resolve a target on a map, whether it's battle or not. However, from a context perspective, player and follower are not relevant. So I just have to signal neither of those would be used in the context of battle. Okay? So let's see if we can... I think this is coming together in my head. So instead, we would have a different sort of set of options we choose. So what we'll do is maybe we'll do like a property. Property? Do I want to do a property? Do I make it public or not? I like to make my properties public usually, because private properties don't make sense in this context. Right, like, yes, maybe. So we default it to true. And then we say that, right? Why do I say name of? What dumb, stupid, dumb thing? No. Oh, I see. It's using name of. I mean, why did I just do this? It's much more performant, I think. Like show player option, show follower option. And then follower position. Okay, so those ones I'm not going to worry about right now. Target ID. Okay, so this is sort of how we sort of manage this. It is making the resolver smart, but the resolvers are supposed to be somewhat smart. because the resolvers have to make decisions based on the context that's available. So the way this is going to work is when there's a resolver in a command or whatever, we have to pass in the current context so the resolver can decide what the heck it's doing with that information. So if I go to my move actor command, in here, I'm going to make a private map target resolver. Oh my God. Target resolver. Thank you. We'll just call it map target. And we'll do inline property. Make this serializable. Always gotta make sure you make them serializable. And then in here, that's serializable. Perfect. Okay. So what we have to do then is on the setup method of this, we have got to pass in the context to the resolvers. Now, I think, because I'm lazy, and I don't like to write boilerplate code over and over again, and because I really like to over-engineer things, I'm going to use a similar method that I did with the build commands for the resolvers in the command section, I think. Does this matter in the context? Yes, it does. It matters in the context of everything. How do I want to do this? Base node. So if we look at like build commands here, I use this method of like using reflection to find any fields that are commands. So I can do the same thing in the begin or setup method of the command. So I could find all the resolvers and shove in the context. I think that's legit. Let's do that. I'm going to do that. And then later, I hope someone will be like, Matzi, you know, remember when you wrote this code and you're like, this will be fine. And look at all these performance issues you're having. I don't think there will be performance issues. Knock on wood, but you never know. There's far bigger issues that can be like, my coworker says this all the time. He goes, computers are fast. They are, but not, you know, Nintendo Switches aren't. Hopefully by the time this game comes out, we won't have to worry about that. Because there'll be a new Switch out. It'll be super fast. No, I still don't think it's going to be, like, it's not, it is like some amount of time, but it's still, for, you know, for practical purposes, big O(n) or big O(1). It's a constant amount of time. It does add a constant amount of time for every command, but we're not talking about thousands of commands. We're talking about tens of commands. We're not, you know, like, especially in the scope of battle, we're not going to have, you know, 100 commands strung out in a row. It's going to be more like 10 at most. And that, from a performance perspective, is negligible. Even if it was big O(n) squared. If you guys know what big O means. Not big O tires stuff. Talking about complexity. the mathematical complexity of an algorithm. I did that to make fun of stuff. He might actually know what big O notation is about. But I just had fun saying that. Okay, so what was I doing? I wanted to go into the node command. I did once. I knew what big O meant once. So like the build commands method, I'm going to make a method called build set up resolvers. And then we'll pass in the I know right now, like, I'm tying my everything to like a graph context container, but the nodes only work in graphs because it's a node command. When I was trying to get a programmer job, first call I did, they asked if I knew, and I didn't. They shot me down. Yeah, well, can you ever really learn big O notation? Double loops, yeah, that's big O n squared. But like the way you prove the complexity of an algorithm, it didn't compute for me. I don't know how I passed that class. I think, well, partly I had my buddy would always try and give me the answers. Like, I would eventually kind of pick up how it fit, but doing the proofs it's just so, like, I didn't like the hand waviness of it. It wasn't concrete. It was like, well, you can make these assumptions, and then you could just kind of, if you look at it this way and squint, and it was just like, oh God, that was so, because you had to like look at not the individual executions, you looked at the, where it's going to end up. So it's almost like the asymptotal view. You say not what one iteration of the algorithm looks like, but what would happen if it was run infinite number of times, and then that somehow translates into complexity. And like, I don't know how they came up with n log n or anything like that. All I know is that if you have n number of things that you loop, and then you loop another n number of things, that's big O n squared. But usually it's not always n squared, it's like n log n, which is almost n squared, but not quite, because there's some variance. Like these sorting algorithms that are out there, really demonstrate complexity and performance. But I'm not that type of thinker. That's not how my brain works. I understand it out of necessity, but not out of ability. That's also why I never took physics classes, by the way. Physics were also a bit too hand wavy for me. It wasn't just like algebra or calculus where it's like, here's this equation and you just like do and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, if you consider these factors and then velocity and time, and I mean, I never took a physics class. I started to take a physics class once and I was like, nope, not for me. Move on with my life. System reflection binding, yes. Okay, and then we're going to use base target resolver. So this will give me all of the resolvers. And then we're not going to enqueue it because we're not queuing anything, dudes. We're just going to call their setup method. Okay, what is? Oh, it does resolve. I think it does resolve direct though, doesn't it? Hey, like it's winter time, so you get to like, anyone get to like skin on your lip? And then you like you pick at it until your lips bleed because, we're weird humans that do things like that. So I think that like this is meant to happen one-off where you say, I want to resolve a target. But how's that going to work? Oh, I think I'd do it. So this returns a target. So now I got to think about how I want this to work. So So there's two ways in which I can get the information that I need. Well, I would have to call resolve target no matter what. However, it strikes me that it would be beneficial if the resolvers had the context, like the container, available to them when you call resolve. The problem with that is that if it's not done in that order, let me think about this real quick. Or let me think about this really slow, actually. Let me think. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is determine at which point I inject the container so that the resolver can figure out what it's going to give back. The container is going to have whatever context is available. And so the resolver is going to look at the context and decide when you say, give me, if I say resolve target map character, right? Give me the map character. Then it would try to look at the context and see what it can find. Or resolve target current target or something. The resolving method is not in itself smart. Well, what I mean is, like, it doesn't know, like, if you entered any information like a show player or whatever. What I would do in here is say, oh, if it was is player, then it's going to attempt to look at the context and get the player and then return it. Okay. Right. If you are allowed to see player, like what I would probably do in this case is I would check if the context was a battle graph context or not. And if it was battle graph context, it's only going to try to return potential graph context based upon the settings. Or null. Which means I need to think about how this is going to be manipulated. Okay, so this is the walk command. The walk command doesn't actually store any it doesn't return any objects. It stores information on the movement, and then when you talk about like the target is a command that represents an ID that gets returned. So this returns an identifier, like a if it's player, I think it returns null or something. But if it's a map scene object or whatever, it just returns a string that represents the identifier, and then the executing code looks on the map and finds that value. No matter what it is, it's always returning an ID. So if I'm gonna do this, I either make the resolver return a string and then I go, or like a GUID, and I go find the object, or I make the resolver actually give me the object that I need. It's very interesting to me how this is going to work. I know this is needed, and I know that I'm kind of close to the pieces I need, but I don't know exactly how it's going to work when I write the code. I know I should just shut up and write the code, but it's like I want to make sure I have a good starting direction. So map target would get configured, and then on execute, I'd say something like map target resolve, right? So it could be I make the resolve dictate what is being returned. So if that's the case, I would go in here, and I'm just forcing myself to move forward a little bit. So then I would make a method that would return a map character, which is a, actually I kind of want to do my own object. So I'm going to do map event, right? Yes, is this mine? Yes, these are my objects. So then I'm going to say resolve, for instance, and then I would return, you know, at the moment I'll just return a new map event. But if I did resolve here, then I would do resolve target, pass in the map event, and then end up returning it. So in a way, I wouldn't even really want resolve target to be used externally. I wouldn't want the code, the command code to just arbitrarily call resolve target. And that sort of tracks with what how I'd want it. I would want a resolver to have a concretion, a concrete thing it returns, but the generic setup like this is for, I think, the internal resolver. It's for the resolver itself to determine what it wants to get back. Is that even a good pattern? Maybe. One way or another, if I'm going to have extended classes, if I'm going to take a target resolver and extend it, I either have to use some kind of generic, because the resolver can return anything, or I have to use like object, right? It has to be like, you can just return any object, any old thing, anything, right? And then I'd have to figure out what to do with it. So it's either a generic that then I have to cast into something or return back something, or something more concrete. So I think I'm just going to leave it like it is. I'm going to leave this whole idea of using resolve target, and then I'll refactor it later. But I'm going to do something like this, right? So it's like resolve or get or whatever. And since it is a resolver, I'll probably use the term resolve. Map target resolve, right? Because it's a resolver. Fine. I'm a resolver. So this will get the information that we need to use in order to manipulate the actor. I don't want to pass in context here. I don't want the execution to worry about what the context is. So I do want to go back to this idea of using a setup on the resolver to prepare the context, which means either I still maintain this necessary resolve approach, or I remove this entirely and I still make like a setup that's required. I think inherently I'm going to leave this as it is, and then I'm going to make a intermediary class whose job it is to have the setup and retain that container, I think. But I'll just do it in this class for now. That's what I'll do. So what I mean is like private. Do we do private or public? I'll say public. So then we'll make a setup method, public void setup. Okay. So then we get the context, and then what we would end up returning here is resolve target, map event, context, right? It's a lot of like extra work jumping around, but there's two ways I think about this sort of code. There's the, okay, well, generically speaking, the base resolver just offers up a pattern for retrieving information. It doesn't try to do a bunch of work for you. It's an abstract method and a concrete method. You can do with it what you want. And so by nature, it has to use something generic, and it has to be set up in a way that's not like overly smart. If I made like a setup method, problematically, it would increase the complexity of the resolver, and it require the developer who's using it to use it more intelligently. Whereas if it's like this, I can do whatever I want afterwards. So what I might, I'll toy with the idea on like whether I want it to live in here or not. But what I might do is instead make like a core, like some other resolver in between this, like some other base that we put in between that would contain the context with the setup method with some other things. Hey, OMG, what's up? How's it going? How's life? How's life in the Godzilla lane? Godzilla? Okay. So anyway, let's go back to our node. Where's our node command at? Roaring? Well, I hope your life is scaling up a bit. Yeah. What was I doing? Set up resolvers. Okay. So we're going to go back to this. Oh, crap. But I had this set up resolvers thing. And I want to use the base one. Fine. I did all that talking, and then I realized I have to do it this way. Okay. If I want to have a context like I defined, I have to put the base. I have to put this in the base class. I have to put this and the setup in the base class. It's fine. This gets back to like, don't overthink things, Matzi. I have a developer that report. Well, it doesn't report to me. It reports to my manager or director. But he is like the epitome of overthinker. He will spend days thinking of every possible angle on something and like writing documentation and planning it out before he writes a single lick of code. And he doesn't do it now because I told him, stop thinking, start writing code. And yet here I am overthinking things. I don't lie to him though. I'm like, I do the same thing, but at the same time, knowing what I do, I can recommend that it's time to like start doing, right? And it's funny because the reason is, it's not to say don't ever think. It's, from my experience, I can sit there and like split hairs all day, but until I start actually working in the code, I can't contextualize things enough to make appropriate decisions. So sometimes, like, I had an English teacher who would say, we get to read something and say, I try to read, work on this. And he'll say, don't apologize, just read the crap. Because, 9 times out of 10, especially as a high school student, you have no idea what you're doing and you write crap. So just accept it. Your work's never done. It's just due. So don't try to make perfection. Just make something and then iterate on it. And I say this as just a serial overplanner and overthinker. I absolutely do too much thinking when it comes to doing work. And sometimes it has been really beneficial And other times I just should have not done. It's hard to tell which time is which, but I do tend to now have a sense of when I need to spend a little bit more time thinking versus doing. But there, inevitably you still need a prototype. You still need to write some crap because you can't, there's just no way you can make an informed decision if you haven't started trying to write something crappy. So I just put on my crappy hat and I go. The main thing I always try to say is like, okay, it's okay if you write crap, just, put it in one place, encapsulate it. Don't write crap in 10 different places because then you're really in the bind. Try to find a way to just shove your crap into one giant method. I would prefer a 200-line method over 200 lines of code spread out over 3 classes, right? Which, incidentally, and this is not just this one developer, although this developer does it. One of the things you often see with people who try to make something more efficient or like more readable is they'll take a 200-line method and just chunk it up into 3 different methods. But all they do is call themselves in serial. It's like, oh, call this thing. What else does that method do? That's it. The method's only job is to take this chunk of code and move it down there. It doesn't do anything that has utility. It's just literally like, it's just, or it's even worse if they take something that's like, instead of it being one method with 3 other methods that just run in serial, it's chained. It's like method chaining. So it's like, oh, I'm going to call this one, and then I'm going to call that one, and then I'm going to call that one, and I'm going to call that one. And then you say, okay, there's 5 methods you just called. Do any other methods use these? No. So you haven't refactored anything. What you've done is taken something that was somewhat inefficient and made it even more inefficient to maintain. And to be fair, I've done the same thing. I'm not saying I haven't, but it's just funny the way, oh, I've refactored it. Have you? Is this really usable? Have you just made this a billion times worse? Okay, so setup resolvers is going to get called in the setup method because that has the context. So we're going to say setup resolvers, boom. All right, so all this stuff is baked in now. So when a node gets triggered for setup, any resolvers that exist will get triggered. And then of course we have to do another thing, which is when we're in Unity context, like editor context, we also need to set up the resolvers because we need to be able to see what's available. So I'm going to have to figure out that part because I think what I have to do is from the node, I'm going to have to trigger different setup activities. Okay, so anyway, so we have move actor command. We have the map target. We have inline property. We want to hide the label because the label usually just gets in the way. We also want to hide the object picker. Hide reference object picker. We don't really care about the on execute right now. We just really want to get this resolver to show something. Show something, I'm giving up on you. We're not doing anything with the targets yet, so it doesn't really matter here. We'll just leave that as it is for now. This is okay because we're not resolving anything yet, and that's okay. Okay. So I'm not, this isn't technically functional, but I think I have enough that I can do an editor view just so we can prove that it will show up in the editor. I think it would show up in the editor now, in fact. Let me go take a look. It won't show up here, but it'll show up in the action graph. My clothes were having a competition to decide which one is the coolest. It ended up being a tie. I feel like you could also go with cool as in not hot. I don't know what clothing you would say was literally cooler than other clothes. Unless it was like ice. Clothing made out of ice. Oh, it was an ice tie. Oh, wait. No, that doesn't really work. It was a nice tie. I was much more excited about that than I should have been. Okay. All right, let's see if we can do this. Move. No. Hold on. We want to go to the... So we want core node graph. No, wait, don't I have that? Oh, I never made the actual node for the move actor. Okay, so node commands. We have to go to nodes. Control tools. So we'll do an actor. It is kind of weird that I have to make this parity, but I do inherently like the notion that they're separate. I don't know why. It just feels right for some reason. So private move actor command. And then I don't think we do we do a constructor? I don't think these can have constructors because they're serializable. I can't remember if I have to do hide reference object picker for everything or not, but okay. I should just make like a combined attribute that just includes that, right? It's just like, it's a blah. Anyway, so then this should work. And by my current setup, because I already have an automatic way to collect the commands, I don't have to like trigger the command. It's just there. As long as I have this field here, it'll be picked up as a command that can be triggered. I did briefly consider like maybe I should make a node creator where you can like, you know, like a little formula, put together all the different commands. But then I thought, nah. I'm not sure which more work, but it's less concrete. And I think with these nodes things, you want some level of concreteness. All right. Okay, so we have the node. This is okay. I don't really care. Hide attribute. That's just because some variable is not available. Let's see. If is follower is hide if. Actually, I'm not sure why. What attribute is it saying isn't working? Let's go back and look. Hide if attribute state could not match is player or is follower to any possible value. But there's is player. Oh, it's because of the way their things work. I don't really care. I will just, for the moment, I'm just going to get rid of their code there. Doesn't really matter. Because this is, I'm just going to like build this up as I go, basically. This is so funny. Return nothing ST. I don't even really need to. Oh, do I do that? Yeah, I do. I need to be able to use this to resolve what the target is going to be. Okay. So, Show player option. This should be fine. What I want to do is the editor thing. So we do if I got to figure out how I want the editor updates to happen. So the node is the node. Where's the node? Where? Come on. There you go. This has a method in it for, I think I call it init. Is that what I call it? Let's see. So init gets called from somewhere, from the base node. And that gets called whenever the node is enabled. So this is a way I have used, even in the editor, to make sure that when the nodes are like first loaded, it'll update information. I can't remember if I added in it or if it was already there. But it's also what happens when it gets refreshed, right? So this is how I say, oh, you know, load up all the data that you need to use for whatever you're displaying. So currently, this also does like some basic node setup for information that we can gather from it. So what I would do then is I'd have to call other things within the base node, right? So this is the init method. If move actor node was initted, we need to tell all of the commands available. Okay. So how do I want to do this? I think init has to be available outside of the editor, but I only really want this next thing to call if we're in the editor. So I'm going to put a flag here. I usually, this is kind of messy, but this is how C# works, right? Putting directive flags. I really hated these things, but game dev, it's like game design, game dev. You kind of have to do things that look a little yucky, but save you some time. I don't really want to go make a whole editor view, and it's just a pain in the butt. I've definitely made my life much harder this way. Okay, so if we're in the Unity editor, we want to get some cast commands. Can I build commands? Let's see. Yes, I can. Okay. So this default behavior will get the list of commands, and then for each one of the commands, we will run their own init method that is only in the editor, right? So we'll make public virtual void init, just to keep some parity with the. Oh, we can't because they're nodes, right? I need to go to commands. I'm in the wrong place. Okay, here we go. Public virtual void init. Boom. So this is the thing that'll do all the other things. So if we're in the Unity editor, we would have to be able to take in context. So we're gonna pass in graph context container, and then we'll say set up resolvers like so. I think that's all I need, right? Yes, I don't really care about. This thing doesn't need the context container when we're in the editor. It just needs the resolvers to have the context. Okay. So it's non-runtime context that we'd have to pass in. So now I got to figure out how I get the context. How do I get the context? How am I going to get the context? Where do we get the context? We have to get it from the graph. Okay, so now we have to go to our base graph, base node graph, and we have to build context. Yeah, yeah. Public graph context container. Oh wait, we already have create context, don't we? Do we? No, we create context in the runner. So the runner. So I might have to move where this happens, right? Because maybe the graph should own the context, I think. It's all right. We'll just steal it. Because we're not going to use runner context in this case, right? Yeah. Okay. So, what? Node graphs context. I wonder if I should change the name of this. Maybe we'll call it graph context. That makes sense. This is not going to go wrong at all, I'm sure. Watch everything break. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, that's fine. So that should make the naming a little bit more clear. All right. So we'll make a property called context. All right. So this is, I'm not setting it up yet. I don't think I even made a graph context object. Have I? Graph context, graph runner context. Do I have a graph context? Where's that? Oh, it's the name of the. Okay, that's fine. I wanted to see like what that was. Okay, so this is the base graph context. This is going to have all the information in the graph, like player and targets and all that stuff. So then I need to go in here and fix namespace, I think. Let's comment that out. There you go. I did a lot of this today. Just going through and cleaning up, you know, my mess I made from refactoring. Look at all these great little. You know, I'll just go fix it directly. Oops. All this extra garbage that shows up in here. That. I don't know why namespaces aren't refactorable in the way that I want to. Like, I've tried to refactor a namespace so that I wouldn't have to go change it manually, but it doesn't seem to work very well. Any hoozle. So that's good. I'll just get the compiling started now so I can let that get through. Okay, so where was I? I was figuring out graph context, right? Yes, graph context container. This is the container for graph context. So this is also going to be public base graph context graph. There you go. So this is the all the information about the graph, which is fine. Then I have to get all the other data. Great. So we have a battle graph. That means I need a battle graph context. I think I have a battle graph. We do. Okay. All right. So so we do have a context that we can use for a battle graph. And when we do battle graph, battle sequence graph. What did I call it? Battle sequence graph. Public override is it protected maybe? Okay. So now I need to do the steps of creating it. Okay, so then we do battle graph runner. This is where I actually created it in the battle graph runner. I'm going to steal it for the sequence graph and, go from there. There's no runner context here. There's also no battle sequence manager. So this is basically editor focus context. I'm gonna see I'm gonna figure out how I'm gonna make the runner work with this. Okay. So what I would do from here, I think that I can just keep working on this, and I think that I'm ready to like mentally decompress a little bit. I'll probably still work on this, but I'm gonna wrap up my stream. What I'm gonna do from here now. So what I'm trying to figure out about this is there's a runtime context, which is pretty easy for me to get information at runtime. I can pull data from various objects. But when we're not in runtime and I want to do things like set up an action graph here for an actor or something, I would need to be able to know the names of things that I might need to get information for. And the way that I would describe it is, if I'm in a battle context, if this node is in a battle graph, then this resolved target, I can't say player or follower. Neither of these are relevant. I would need to have current target, which is going to be the target that's executing the action, selected target, which is one or more targets that you have selected for the action to take place on, or some kind of map target, which would either be like an ID reference or a named target. So I have to, in edit time, I have to be able to know what those could be. And in runtime, I have to be able to resolve those actual values. So if I said current target, then that's fine. Like I can say it's current target while I'm editing, but while the game's running, when it says, okay, you chose current target, I have to actually find that information and inject it into the command. And I think I know I'm going to make that work, but at this point, like I'm just kind of going back and forth and talking to myself. So I'm going to just like wrap up, move on, and maybe just putz with it a little bit more. I should be back now on Tuesday. My stomach issues are mostly gone. Hopefully, knock on wood, by Tuesday, I'll be feeling good enough to stream. And I'll hopefully have more to show for this. This is like the hardest part. I was talking earlier about design thought, like thinking about all the things you need to do and like over planning. Part of it is like there is a dam burst moment where I'm building up a dam of all these ideas and putting pieces in place. Not really the greatest analogy because usually dam bursting is bad. Or maybe it's like the Hot Wheels thing where like the Hot Wheel comes a little speeder thing and it goes pew and it shoots off. Like I'm close to that moment. Once I have the pattern locked in, building out the nodes are going to be like boom, 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 boom. And I'm close to that, but the resolving thing, which is really good, I'm using Move Actor. That resolving thing is a huge component to it. And the context thing and passing the context was a huge component. So once all those pieces are in place, it'll flow much more nicely. And then hopefully by the next stream, I'll be able to show like, oh, look, I can move the actor. Then I can play this animation. Then I can play this thing over here. I know I'm going to get stuck on a couple spots, but that's really like, that's the crux of it. We already know that the flow works. My runner works because it can navigate through all these things. So now I need to make things that happen in that navigation to show things on the screen. So that's what we'll get to next. It's pretty intensive. It's a lot of work, but hopefully it'll pay off. The hardest part here after that point will be making all the different actions, right? Ooh, Jacob sent me some footage. You guys want to see some footage? He didn't say I can share it, but I'm going to. Just getting positions. Let me see. Let me look at the footage first. That's not bad. So, did you guys get a sneak peek of this? Oh gosh, come back here. This is a mock solution. Now what is this one? He's in flight on this stuff, right? So it's like positioning the characters, and then he's so this is like the mock-up of what the new battle system is. Some of this, shh, don't tell anybody. Some of this is part of the new trailer that we're going to be releasing for people to see. Shh, good job. So, you know, what you've been seeing with the battle system now is clearly not where we're going to end up going. This is more like what you're going to end up seeing, right? Whereas like, oh, you go into battle and then it like zooms back and you're ready to go. Because we have a camera, we'll have the ability to change how or when battles happen, you know, the way it shifts into battle. Sometimes it'll be exactly the camera angle just slightly tilted. Other times we might actually flip the camera around. It does, you know. So like what you've been seeing with my battle stuff, it's just sort of the initial things. We're definitely trying to make this look the part too. And as you can see, we may even be trying to go with the icon-based approach. A lot of games use that nowadays. And I don't really like all the words. I think the words get too much. Like the attack, whatever. Like this is much more fun looking. I don't know. Anywho, there you go. You gotta see some stuff. I didn't tell him that I was showing that. I just showed everyone. He'd be like, Matzi, why? No. All right, let's go find someone to raid. All right, so we are muted. Good. So we're not going to start hearing people's voices. Sad it's over. Oh, well, you know, I got to be somewhat reasonable about the way I wind down for the night. Who should I go raid? If you were there, I'd just raid you and start talking to you for another hour. There's no... Well, okay. Alu the Crow. Alu the Crow? I guess so. Or Video Wizard. Is Video Wizard actually working on a game? Now playing. No. Video Wizard is not. I guess we could go say hi to Alu the Crow, who's working on a game. We'll go do that. Thanks for hanging out tonight, peoples and stuff. People and stuff, because, you know, different things. Yeah, I'll definitely knock on your door if you know what I mean. Come and knock on our door. Oh, my bot's not working. Never mind. I forgot to turn the bot on. Oops. Well, anyway, I don't know what that's about. I guess you guys have a good night. We're going to go pop over to Alu and say hello. And see you guys later.